Hello everyone, my name is Guntasha Sabharwal and today I will be talking about my study which is about exploring the nexus, investigating the relationship between self-efficacy and burnout in trainee counselors. So let's begin by seeing the contents of my presentation. Firstly, I will be talking about the introduction, explaining the research background surrounding my study and my research question. Then I will be talking about the methods that I used to conduct this research along with telling about the participant inclusion criteria. Then I will be talking about the data analysis and my results based on the collection of data. Lastly, I will be talking about the discussion, explaining the impact of my study and future implications. Introduction. Let's get started by talking about the concepts that are involved in my study. The first concept of my study is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is defined as an individual's belief about their capability to learn new behaviors and to improve their future outcomes. It is also seen to be influenced by a combination of environmental and social factors. What this means is it is the reflection of an individual's confidence in their ability to exert control over their motivation, behaviors, and social factors. The second concept is about burnout. Burnout is the response to stress at work, which is characterized by emotional exhaustion, which is a feeling of being emotionally drained, and depersonalization, which is a feeling of feeling negative and detached towards people. It is also accompanied by a low sense of personal accomplishment, which is self-doubt about their own accomplishments at work. Developing awareness of effects of exhaustion and incompetence due to burnout and well-being of mental health professionals in future training programs has been highlighted in a lot of researches. The perception of this incompetence has been seen as a risk factor in leading towards unethical behavior and burnout. Self-efficacy has been recognized as building psychological and social strength to develop self-regulatory mechanisms and improve mental health with having self-care maintenance during challenging times. Adding on to that, training courses now aim not only to advance the skills of the individual but also to promote their personal growth. Addressing burnout has become a key aspect of counseling trainees as they tend to adopt avoidant coping strategies to detach themselves from work. Apart from highlighting the negative impacts of work or training-induced stress, professionals and scholars are now advocating for examination of protective elements. These safeguarding elements may be related to work characteristics such as safety guidelines and administrative framework or personal attributes such as age, self-confidence, and positive outlook which have been associated with burnout. Growing research has brought popular concepts like self-efficacy, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and resilience into light in relation to burnout. New research is also exploring beyond occupational factors like work environment to create training programs focusing on self-care for burnout prevention. Incorporating self-care practices in training counselors at master's level has also been seen to enhance their personal and professional growth, leading to reduced burnout. Resilience-related factors like self-efficacy and optimism have also been identified as crucial factors in developing resilience and managing risk factors. Hence, with new research, focus is shifting to training for new qualified counselors and focusing on personal factor development such as self-efficacy to prepare them better for the demands of their new work environment and incorporating these factors in the training to better manage burnout levels. So what is my research question? From the background research, it can be seen that there is a gap in research focusing on trainee counselors and early interventions. So my research question for the study is, what is the effectiveness of self-efficacy as a mediator for burnout levels in individuals in the training process of counseling profession? To understand this relationship between self-efficacy and burnout, burnout will be viewed at three subscales: work-related burnout, personal burnout, and client-related burnout. My first hypothesis is high levels of self-efficacy among trainee counselors will lead to lower levels of work burnout. My second hypothesis is high levels of self-efficacy among trainee counselors will lead to lower levels of personal burnout. And my third hypothesis is high level of self-efficacy among trainee counselors will lead to lower levels of client burnout. Here are the methods. Let us start by seeing the design of this study. This study followed a quantitative correlational research design that gave us an opportunity to test the hypothesis and explain the correlational degree between the variables. The independent variable for the study was self-efficacy and the dependent variable was burnout divided in three subscales. I will explain the questionnaires in the next slide. Participants. Based on the inclusion criteria, the study aimed to recruit 100 trainee counselors, and the inclusion criteria was of being above the age of 18, being on a counselling placement in UK, and having at least one client session. No exclusion was done on the basis of gender or ethnicity. The data collection process. Data was collected through online questionnaire being circulated by email to placement organizations, adverts on Facebook, and messages through WhatsApp. Let us discuss the procedure in short. The participants were given the questionnaires online, which included an information sheet explaining the purpose and nature of the study. After giving consent to the study, the participants were moved to the next page, which included information about demographic details and the inclusion criteria. This included details such as student status, age, gender, nationality, and ethnicity. Once this was completed, they moved on with the questionnaires. After completion of questionnaires, the final section included a debrief statement explaining the aim and purpose of the research project, thanking them for the participation, and also signposting them to Bangor University Counselling and Student Support Services for external support. Overall, the research was designed to ensure that participants are fully informed of the study and their rights, and that the data collected is handled with utmost respect. Questionnaires used. For self-efficacy, Generalized Self-efficacy Scale was used, which is a 10-item questionnaire containing questions that are to be answered on not at all to exactly true measures. For burnout, Copenhagen Burnout Inventory was used, and it is a 19-item questionnaire with 3 dimensions of burnout: personal burnout, work-related burnout, and client burnout. And for this also, the questions are to be answered from not at all to exactly true. Here is the analysis of the data collected. Analysis of data. Total data collected was of 59 trainee counselors, out of which 22 were accepted based on the inclusion criteria. The results were found using Pearson's correlation and was seen as 3 relationships. First, the relationship was seen for self-efficacy and work burnout. The results showed that there wasn't enough data to support our hypothesis of high levels of self-efficacy would lead to low levels of work burnout. For the second relationship between self-efficacy and personal burnout, the analysis again showed that there wasn't enough data to support the hypothesis of high levels of efficacy would have low levels of personal burnout. And lastly, for a third relationship between self-efficacy and client burnout, the analysis again showed that self-efficacy and client burnout do not have enough evidence to support the hypothesis of high levels of self-efficacy will have low levels of client burnout. Now, let us look at the discussion for this study. Here is the discussion explaining the results and some limitations and implications of my study. Findings of the research. What was found? The study aimed to understand if there was any correlation between self-efficacy and burnout in trainee counselors. The levels of self-efficacy were understood in relation to 3 subscales of burnout: personal burnout, work burnout, and client burnout. The results of this study showed that there was no correlation between these variables and that for burnout, self-efficacy cannot be seen as a mediator. The research question tried to identify the role played by personal factors of a trainee counselor in their experience of burnout, only to understand if this could contribute towards further development in training programs. There has been seen a mixed availability of literature in relation to burnout and self-efficacy. There were studies that supported this relationship, but also those that said that there might not be a direct relationship between the two variables. Previous literature has contributed to understanding self-efficacy as a factor linked to burnout, but only on emotional exhaustion and depersonalization factor. There have also been studies that have linked burnout as an influencing factor for self-efficacy levels in an individual. While the focus has now shifted to identifying protective factors for burnout, it is being seen that the relationship between self-efficacy and burnout was not found. The interesting development, though, is that the factors like job demand, social support, imposter syndrome, perfectionism have influence on levels of burnout rather than self-efficacy. In the next slide, I will be talking about these variables in relation to burnout and self-efficacy, and also as mediators between the two. Other variables. Social support has been recognized in helping maintaining a healthy work-life balance and hence improving the levels of burnout. Many studies have also found that social support contributes towards levels of self-efficacy which help in management of stress. Individuals with work support from employers and friends have been seen to have strengthening of their confidence in themselves and their abilities, which contributes towards better management of psychological distress and challenges and promoting resilience against burnout. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is seen to influence the perception of self that an individual holds in a stressful situation, hence impacting their burnout levels. Adaptive perfectionism has been recognized as that factor that can help in improving this perception that an individual holds, hence improving the experience of burnout. Let us look at imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome has been recognized as an important factor which is related to resilience or coping. Having self-efficacy levels being influenced by imposter syndrome creates a barrier despite the individual having the capabilities, which leads to lower management of burnout. Imposter syndrome has been seen to be specifically related to depersonalization aspect of burnout, and improving imposter syndrome leads to better management of emotional exhaustion and burnout. Job factors. Job stress and schedules have been seen to impact the levels of burnout in an individual. A study including surgical residents found that those with better schedules at work were able to have more social activities, hence more social support, better self-efficacy about themselves and their roles at work, and better burnout and stress management strategies. Lastly, let us look at grief and bereavement. This factor has been studied specifically for training counselors and other professions in the mental health field. Having better levels of burnout management and self-efficacy is due to the emotional state of an individual. This impacts the perception that an individual holds about themselves and the sense of burden that they view by these stressful events. Better management of grief and emotional state can help in developing an understanding of how to improve the well-being of these individuals. Limitations and implications. I will start with the limitations of this study and then move forward with the implications. Addressing the small size of this study is an important limitation, as it might not be representative of the larger population. This also limits the generalization of this in other mental health professions. A larger size would address this issue and would also bring new information about self-efficacy and burnout in a broader sense. The second limitation is the use of self-report measures, as they rely on participants and their interpretation of questions which might not accurately capture their experience or the experience of the questionnaire. For example, participants might be inclined to report higher or lower levels of self-efficacy in burnout to appear more competent or receive more attention. Thus, the study's findings may be limited to the accuracy of these measures. For implications, let us move on with understanding that even though this study was not able to significantly show self-efficacy as a mediator for burnout, it did highlight the importance of recognizing certain extraneous variables like job stress, social support, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, resilience, which should be considered when understanding burnout prevention programs or developing new interventions. Further research should also aim to replicate this study's findings with a larger and more diverse population size. It could include other mental health professions and make it more generalizable. The use of objective measures such as physical measures of stress or observation at workplace behavior, and using self-report measures for burnout and self-efficacy could provide a more accurate assessment. Additionally, like I said, research should explore the role of other personal factors like perfectionism, resilience, coping styles, grief, bereavement in burnout prevention and management. Professionals working in high-stress environments such as mental health professions may benefit from stress management training and access to resources and support networks, including information about these variables. This leads us towards the last slide of this presentation about why I conducted this study. Why this research? Before I answer this question, I would like to say that even though this study did not find a significant relationship between self-efficacy and burnout in trainee counselors, it did highlight the need for further research to fully understand the relationship shared by them in the mental health profession. The study's finding also emphasized the importance of considering other factors like job stress, social support, resources, imposter syndrome, perfectionism in burnout prevention, and developing programs for mental health professionals. These programs could include interventions aimed at reducing job stress, providing early exposure to new work environments and adequate resources for it, and promoting social support networks within workplace. Overall, this study adds to existing body of research on burnout and personal factors in mental health, and also highlights the complex interplay between personal and workplace factors in burnout prevention, and hence more comprehensive approaches need to be developed for it. Why this research? Mental health professionals play a vital role in supporting individuals in need of mental health care, and addressing burnout in this population is essential to ensure that they continue to provide high quality care for their clients. Thank you so much for listening today. Do you have any questions? Please share them in the comments section below, and I will try and answer them to the best of my abilities. For any more information on this study, please refer to the handout link in the description box below.